Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Or Zabludowski, co-founder and CEO from Flexor. Flexor is a data infrastructure company focused on structuring unstructured data, making all kinds of textual data available for data teams for AI and BI tasks. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Naresh Dulam, Vice President of Software Engineering at JPMorgan Chase.
Thanks for having me here.
We talked about data quality and what we should have in place. Now it's time to talk about architecture. There are many flashy tools, but without the right data architecture, being able to overcome these silos, being able to govern them, being able to control data quality, you won't get this far.
Yeah.
So I am curious, what are the implications of talking about AI data readiness when it comes to highly regulated industries? Because now we add another layer on top of all of the problems of other industries.
Yeah.
What is it like in financial services, for example?
It's not only the financial, I would say, see, the healthcare is also the highly regulated, and not only the healthcare, like all the industry now they have to abide the rules of this governments they are bringing that, right? So especially in these regulated industries like finance, so the AI readiness is mainly involves around building in a robust data governance foundations that balances the accessibility and traceability and the compliancy. So let me explain a little bit detail like so it so your data need to have a data lineage. You should be able to explain that this final attribute that you are using to feed into the model is derived from this kind of this is the source for it. That kind of lineage is very, very important. That comes as part of your data governance. And also the consistent metadata, like you need to have a standard structure for the metadata that you are defining so that any other system can understand or anybody can understand. And the other thing is like the transparent governance policies, like the policies that should be explainable to the others. So actually the financial institutes must ensure these rigorous security and privacy standards while providing the granular or timely access to the highly quality data sets. Like what I mean to say that it's not about giving you a data, making the data ready for your AI system, but having when you want it, you should be able to stop it. Otherwise, we don't know the AI system, how they were going to use that information, right? So the granular level of access is required. There are a lot of tools, technology vendors available for this granular level access. Uh, and the other thing is, in the financial or regulated industries, data readiness for AI is not just about the technology solution. It's also the mind shift change. So first of all, we need to we need to build the trust among the stakeholders and the transparency through these systematic documentations. So the first of all, stakeholders should believe in that the protocols that we have in place are strict enough. If there is a AI can not go beyond what is supposed to do that one. And also having the real-time monitoring capabilities, not like the batch, like maybe after it's 3 months or 6 months you realizing that. It should not be like that. It should be in real time, evaluate the access, who is accessing, what is accessing, so that those kind of things will help these regulator or the stakeholders to believe or build the trust on the system that we are building. So having these things makes this AI data readiness for any industries, not only the finance or healthcare. I think it should be for all the industries, I would say.
Yes, 100%. Especially when we talk about agents and we talk about unstructured data, all of a sudden we turn into the realm that has a lot of customer data, right? The customers' conversations, how they interact with you, the documents and agreements, employee agreements, all these things contain a lot of private information. And when you don't have proper controls on what your AI produces as outputs, you can't make sure that you're getting the right data. Now, I do want to highlight a few of your points that I think that are really important and are sort of a paradigm shift in the industry right now. First one is Lineage, because we're talking about generative models. You have a data point, you have a generative model, and you have an output. There's some sort of integration between what the model knows and what it produces into the outputs. So how do you even think about Lineage? How do you make sure that this result that you got is not hallucinated or does not source from a data source that is not allowed to be processed. So that's point number one. Point number two is about granular data access. While you can control which data points are being accessed, it's pretty hard to tell what they contain. Does this document contain PII? Does this customer conversation contain maybe PHI? How do we know that? It's all locked inside the unstructured data. And the third point is closing the loop or monitoring. When we have agents in place, all the outputs are unstructured data. They're even communicating with each other with text when you talk about multi-agent systems. So how do we even start to control that? Now, we can leave it as an open question, but I'm really curious, even if you have a few pointers about that for our audience.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, right? So it's about the mind shift. So one is the technology solutions. So there are a lot of, I'm exploring some of these solutions out there to implement the data lineage. It's easy with the structured data. You can do that because it was there for a long time, structured databases and all. But it's with the unstructured data, we are still in the early stages. Maybe in some days, like right now, we are trying to solve these, making the data available for this model. So hopefully we will end up. Maybe in the soon we will go for these data lineage for the unstructured data. I know there are. I spoke with a lot of vendors over the period of time when I was going to the conferences. They are coming and explaining, but I don't find anything that is something that felt like is productionized. And of course, these are early stages, right? So with the GPT, only the vector database, all these are coming up. So maybe in a few years, we'll get to know that better solutions for this data lineage on the unstructured data.
Thank you for that, Naresh. I do want to highlight a few points that you made that are part of the paradigm shift around AI and primarily with unstructured data, because now companies have unstructured data everywhere, and this data in almost all industries contains sensitive information such as PII or PHI. So the first thing that you talked about was lineage. And when you talk about lineage, you have this architecture right now. When you have your data, you have a generative model, and then you have the outputs. Now, this generative model injects new information into your original data. So how do you even approach data lineage in this context? So that's area number one. The second area is about the fine-grained control of access to data points. So while you can control the access to a single data point, because it's unstructured, it's hard to tell what's inside this data point. So you have a document, you can restrict access, but can you answer the question, does this document contain PIIs? Does this customer chat talk about sensitive health information? Does it mention financial details? So all this information is locked inside unstructured data. It is harder to control at the data point level. And the first piece is that these models and agents also output unstructured. So how do you close the loop? You mentioned the need to monitor these conversations. So how do you make sure that your agents are not outputting information that they're not allowed to? And when agents communicate with each other in a multi-agent architecture, this problem becomes 10x bigger 10x. Because now it's hard to debug. So it's a big of a broad question, but I'm curious for your take about it, Naresh.
Yeah. So I the way I approach these kind of challenges is like I try to do those in a controlled environment. So I'll have a sandbox kind of environment to demonstrate like where is the model exposing this kind of information to the outside world, or a model is accessing. So that's the one way I could think of it, to completely demonstrate the complaints before I put them into the production. And of course, if you see that the evolution of these technologies, tools are coming up, right? So there are a lot of vendors trying to solve these challenges. We can take the cues from them, or like use the products out of their shelves. But again, it's in a very early stages, so we cannot say that it's completely it works for you or works not for this use case versus that use cases. It's like an experimentation, right? In the AI, it's all about experimentation. You have to experiment and do that one. But again, going back to that, the how I approach is like having a controlled sandbox environment to demonstrate all these challenges, lineage, how I do that, explainability to the regulators, auditors. So it requires a good amount of thought process to build those kind of systems.
Yes, definitely. We now see emerging techniques to provide lineage for specific tasks, such as data classification or information extraction, and it becomes harder the more conversational the data is, the more generative the task is, but we still have a lot to discover in this landscape.
Yeah.
And I think that talking about the challenges in operating agents and controlling them, it's a good point to pivot to talking about an emerging architecture in the AI space, which is the usage of MCP as a major component of it. And MCP is changing the way that AI accesses and interacts with data and different tools. So how do you see this impacting the way we build AI in the enterprise?
Oh, by the way, MCP is a history now, A to A. You might have hearing that, right? I'm just kidding. So yeah, the MCP. This is one of the a fundament. It's a transformational change in this AI ecosystem. I would say that the way the HTTP did for us interconnectivity between all the systems, right? Across the countries. So the MCP is going to do that one. So I always before that MCP, we whenever we are building these models solution with the different models, because one model is definitely not work for the holistic system building, right? So it was very challenging to these two models talking to the same source, because each talks in a different way. But thanks to the Anthropic, they brought this MCP, and it fundamentally transformed the data interaction by at the live, like you can access the stream data in a secure and make your agents are contextual aware information. So the traditionally, as I explained, right, we have two different models. They needed two different APIs to talk to the same data source, and that did not give a lot of flexibility to play with these data sets. We have to duplicate the same work, and the other thing is the scalability is another challenge with these rigid API calls. And of course, the security is another challenge, implementing that authentication mechanism, because each one has a different way of representing taking the authentication. So MCP addresses these some of these challenges by making a standardized access to these data, make the data available to the agents, and basically making our agents are more context driven, like the context driven, given the information, understand the what is the current state of the data, then take the next decisions. So MCP is a one and also MCP address these governance policies, right? So because you are putting the you are having in a unified system, so that it's easy to implement the governance policies behind that MCP system, right? So a unified system is helping that building a robust governance frameworks for you. And other thing is like um, these more methods like these MCP is allowing us to access your data very quickly, right? So that means you can improve your the speed of your application, the response time get significantly improved, and also the compliance structure of your like the posture of your system, like you have one place to implement the compliance, not in a multiple places. And but you can make your data available from one place to the various models, everyone talking the same language. So these are some of the change things I have seen with the MCP. And MCP had a great potential, and we have implemented if you know that any regulated industry, or if you take any enterprises, they have a lot of the custom process, custom stores, and those it's very difficult for them to bring those sources to this AI. But MCP made life a lot easier, a standardization. Hopefully, it will become another HTTP protocol for this humanity.
Yes, so I think that's maybe the most prominent term that you use is standardization. And we, data people, really like standardization because we like consistency and we like
Right.
interoperability. And MCPs does that for the way that models consume different applications. Now, you're also right about the fact that in the enterprise, everything is custom. This is why I personally believe that we're not going to see off-the-shelf MCP products solving the problem end to end, but I see this as a design pattern to how to make sure that you have centralized, standardized, well-governed access
Yes.
to all your tools. And there's more good news for data people, I think, is that MCP is not going to replace the more traditional data stack because the important aspect of working with data is about transformation and aggregation. And you can think of MCP as more of an API call. But if you want to take all your customers' interactions or customer sessions, derive an insight, and then use it to fill your agents, you'll have these agents to interact with your existing data pipelines. So again, it's data quality, it's semantic layer, it's standardization. But
Yeah.
we see these things working together and not replacing each other. It's just in engineering, there are no silver bullets. That's pretty
Yeah.
much it. And we started with siloed data. Now we're talking about MCP as a way to standardize access to systems. So there are many enterprises that want to adopt these new architectures, even though they haven't figured out all their data silos yet, which is a long journey. So how do you think that data leaders should act to get started and get the first pipelines or the first use cases to production when it comes to implying MCP architecture and, generally speaking, modern AI tools?
That was the challenge. That was the reality of the industries, right? So if you see that one, enterprises has their own, each team or each business unit has their own way of structuring this data. I call them as a data ponds. Each has
Mhm.
own data ponds or data lakes, right? So of course, the I see that a lot of organizations in the last few years, they're trying to centralize this data into a one single source and then make the AI available on top of it. But I would say that it's not the way to go, or it's not the better way to approach the thing. Instead of that, you have them these data, say data available as a federated data sets across their own, say, spaces, like each LOB or each business unit, they might know better about their data. So let them the owners of this data. So if you remember, there is an various patterns emerging like in the last few years, like the data fabric, you might hear it, and the data mesh architecture, and that's where most of the organizations are implementing the data mesh architecture. uh, so that basically the data mesh architecture is promoting the data discoverability and data self-aware accessible for your any of the users. And that's of course standardizing the data management. I like the metadata management. That's what every we are struggling to, all the industries are struggling to do that, right? So these approaches helping us to make the data scattered or federated across the different places, but they are available for your AI and easily, so that they can empower your AI systems and applications uh, to access this data seamlessly, and preserving the agility, because the data is owned by the system, the producers, right? They know what are the changes are coming, so that, but a standard approach, a unified approach of this data mesh architecture help the AI systems to access your data very easily. So that's things I'm thinking, that. So to conclude that, what I would say that one, don't try to centralize it. Let it be the way it is, but see that how efficiently you can make your data available for the systems who are looking to access and get the insights out of it. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that advice. We are in the era of connected systems and not on centralized systems. And that's what lets us move faster in this era. Well, that was an exciting discussion. So thank you so much, Naresh, for joining me today and for the exciting interview. And for more interviews and insights, I recommend that you visit cdomagazine.tech. Thank you again, Naresh.
Thank you. R.